We should be starting off in a moment. And so I'd like to introduce our speaker today, and the topic that we're going to be running today. So our speaker is Michael. Michael.
Hello, thank you. Am I audible enough?
Yes. So just a moment. I'm sorry. Just a moment before we proceed. And thank you, Michael, for speaking up. And yes, we can hear you. So Michael is going to be sharing today on the topic of Web3 design patterns. And the goal for the session today is for us to learn as deeply as we can about how basically gain practical insights on how we can be able to build user-friendly, decentralized experiences. And Michael, as soon as you're ready, you're free to start sharing your screen and we can go. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you. I don't think I can share my screen yet, so I don't know how to
Okay,
do that.
just a moment. You should be able to share your screen now.
All right. All right, thank you. So welcome everyone. My name is Michael Kazungu, UX designer. I am a Web3 designer right now for 5 years. I've been building specifically for Web3 in that period, but obviously I transitioned from Web2 as well. So design in Web3 is not that different from Web2 in terms of like when you look at the UI, but being a Web3 designer, maybe after this small meeting, we can be able to see the things that differentiate between the two. I would say what the main difference between a Web2 designer and a Web3 designer, especially on the UX aspect, is technical expertise. Now, sometimes designers do not like to get into the technical aspects of a project. Some don't, especially the UI guys, but Web3 and UX, you have to know a little bit about technicalities, and Web3 is very, very essential for you even to know about the tools that are needed to build user-friendly apps. Blockchain is a new technology, and Web3 is also a new technology. And in any new technology that arises, people usually focus on the technical bits. So it is only until recently that developers in the space, in the industry, started building new tools to improve the user experience. Right now, it's a little bit better, but if you came into Web3 2, 3 years ago, yeah, you would have found very, very clunky UX. So yeah, welcome to our presentation. I hope after this meeting, you can be able to see some of the principles and some of those patterns and tools that you can use to build new applications for the new decentralized web. So welcome. So just a recap, maybe for those who are not aware about what Web3 is. Web3 is a new iteration of the internet from Web2. Mainly, it's a decentralized internet where everyone owns a little bit of it. If before that you had data that was owned by a few corporates, but now each and every individual has the capability of owning their own data. And Web3 is not only about ownership; it's also about trustless and permissionless. You don't need specific permissions or rules to interact with it. You don't need also an intermediary to interact with it, and you basically do not need to pay someone to interact with it. And the best way for us to look at it is the first products that were built in Web3. We can look at them in the form of finance. And you probably have a bank that you have to go and create a wallet. But in Web3, that wallet, that money is actually, you actually own that money. It's not like a bank whereby money is put in a pool and then it's just assigned values to specific individuals. So in Web3, everything is basically a wallet, and every application that is built in Web3, you'll find out that they interact in wallet forms. And some of those applications that you can go and look at them is Uniswap, which is one of the most popular fintechs in the world right now. And then we have OpenSea. OpenSea is a decentralized application. So when you see dApps, D-apps, it means a decentralized application. So OpenSea is meant to use another technology called NFTs, now used mainly by artists. So artists can be able to sell their own artwork on the internet and earn, usually actually it's a lot of money, and people can actually trade it. So, and then the third one is Swiped. Now, Swiped is Kenyan, is one of the Kenyan Web3 fintech companies building, and that interacts with wallets like MetaMask and Coinbase wallet. So that's just a little bit recap about what Web3 is. So as I began saying, when Web3 came and when blockchain came to be, because it's a new tech, most iterations that were done on the blockchain were technical, very, very technical aspects of it. Mainly, some of them were due to security. Only recently that UX tools have started to being built. So why human-centered design matters is Web3 is that Web3 is actually very, very complex as a tool, as an infrastructure. It is very, very complex for you to interact with it, especially at the core level. Number one, it's wallets. Wallets. Remember when I said that here you actually own your own money. So let's look at two fintechs, for example. I believe everyone here has an M-Pesa wallet. So an M-Pesa wallet, this is you have money that is attached to your account using just a phone number. But and I don't know, a lot of people maybe do not want to hear this, but these Web2 fintech applications just use pools, which are the same as in crypto and Web3, but it's like all the funds are put in a pool and then they're just attached to a database to a specific user. So even in a bank, all the funds are put in a vault, and then just a ledger book is used to assign, Michael has this amount, Alfred, Joy have this amount. But wallets in Web3 are very, very different because there is no intermediary. You are the one who is putting that funds. So if a wallet is telling you you have 1,000 shillings, that 1,000 shillings is not in a pool by another company or a bank. It's actually 1,000 shilling in your wallet, in your digital wallet. So these wallets in Web3 are very, very different. And because they are different like that, it means that you are the one who is owning the specific funds. No one is storing the funds for you. There's something called private keys. Now, these private keys, these are used to now. These are the keys that are actually given to the user. It's the vault now. You are the one who is managing that vault. So that's not easy. That's the infrastructure that is built in. So it is very, very complex because imagine you're trying to um, tell someone who is not even like tech savvy to open a Web3 wallet. That's going to be like a very, very huge task. Not like an M-Pesa where you can just use a phone number and create like a 4-digit PIN. Here, the phone number consists of like 36 letters. So you can imagine those 36 letters, that is your wallet, equivalent to a phone number. And then that 4-digit PIN in M-Pesa is just a 4-digit PIN that you use to authorize transactions. In Web3, it's like it's a private key of the same 36. letters, and those keys sometimes you're given them as words. There are 24 words. So you can imagine an individual, you want to memorize 24 words for your own wallet. So that is very, very hard for anyone actually. Even me who have been in Web3 for a long time, I've never like mastered my seed phrases. So those are called private keys and seed phrases. So another bit of complexity is the transactions as well. So because in Web3 there is no intermediary, there's no bank, there's no any entity, there's no like a central bank who's like saying, or M-Pesa who are saying like we're the one making that transaction for you. It's actually you making that transaction. So you are interacting with the infrastructure yourself. You have to pay for the fees. Sometimes there are delays, but one thing, those transactions you are making have to be confirmed. Confirmed by who? Decentralization means there is no one person, like not one bank, that is confirming those transactions or who is writing on that ledger book. It means there are like hundreds of thousands of computers all around the world that are confirming that you've actually made that transaction. That is not a bug, it's a feature. It makes the internet very, very secure, but it also brings a little bit of complexity to it. Number three is the language. Now, when you are doing UX, when you're doing human-centered design, you have to empathize with the person that you're building with. And that is not just UI, you have to also look at the communication, the language in which you are using to communicate. If I put a seed phrase, you probably do not know what a seed phrase is. For example, M-Pesa are using something called a 4-digit PIN, but whatever that is powering that 4-digit PIN, that's not the name of that. And it's a little bit complex. So they cannot now say they are probably using that name. They've just decided that you are going to use the name 4-digit PIN. So it makes everyone understand that. So in blockchain, because blockchain is a new technology, we have not gotten to that place yet where you can assign specific names to everything that is user friendly. You can see, for example, when you look at the icon of Bluetooth, everyone, even a small child, if you show them that icon, they'll say that's Bluetooth. So each technology, as technologies are being built, that language, that what is it, indexing or glossary or that dictionary is created for those specific technologies. And those you will see in tech, everything that is assigned to an icon is also assigned to an icon. So in blockchain, we are not there yet. We are not in a place whereby, yes, we do have the glossaries, but these are completely new names. Most of these names are very technical. They are not user friendly. So most probably it's going to take anyone a while to understand them. So when you are designing, so that complexity in terms of language is also what is hindering a lot of people to come into the space and also use this technology. The fourth complexity is a chain fragmentation. So what does chain fragmentation use? So I'm trying to use Safaricom and M-Pesa in this. So a chain, picture a chain as we have Safaricom, we have Airtel, we have Telcom. So take those as an example of a chain. So in blockchain, substitute that chain for maybe a network. Actually, funny enough, the synonym for chain is a network. So now when you are sending in blockchain, there are so many chains, so many networks. The same even in telecommunication, there are so many networks, Safaricom, Airtel, and the rest. So we all know that before, someone could not be able to send money from M-Pesa to Airtel. We remember that time where if you wanted to send money to an Airtel number, you have to go to M-Pesa agent, withdraw the money that you have, and then go to an Airtel money, take that cash again that you withdrew from M-Pesa agent, deposit it into an Airtel number, and then send it to an Airtel number. So that period of user experience that we had, where people could not send money between different networks, between Safaricom, Airtel, and Tcash. This is the same period that blockchain is right now. We have too many networks and too many chains, and it is complex for you to send transactions, or to send data, or to send money from one network to another. So in blockchain, we use something called bridges, but I won't jump into that right now. And number 5 is security, avoiding scams and phishing. So yeah, they're probably right now blockchain is known for crypto and scams, unfortunately. But the challenge with this is, like, this in blockchain, there's something that is a dilemma when you're building blockchain applications. So when you're designing a blockchain application, you have to know that blockchain was built with the utmost security in mind. But when you want to make it user friendliness, remember that all the features of the blockchain of Web3, there's no bug there. Everything was intentional to make sure that that technology is very, very secure. So when you're trying to make it user friendly, you have to understand that you are trading some things, some security things. This is actually real. Like, if you are if you want to build something that someone can log in with a one tap, for example, it is possible. But as the designer, you need to know that, and you need to communicate, even the development team and the design team, they need to know that that feature that they're trying to use, they might be trading it for a security feature that was put there intentionally. So it is that kind of trading. As in Web3 design, we know that. So sometimes it is very, very difficult for blockchain teams to build completely user friendly. So that's why you will see some won't do it intentionally, because of the type of product they are building. If they are building a product for extremely for huge transactions, let's say you're building a product for a bank, you probably want the most secure product. So you're probably not going to use some of the UI components or UI traits that you see going around, like a Google or whatever. So it depends. So as a designer, you have to know that in blockchain, it is real that whatever UX strategy you're going to use, you are probably going to trade it for something, for maybe like a security feature or something. So you need to know those. And trust. Now, blockchain is all about transparency. Blockchain was built so that everyone can be able to know who is exactly is interacting with the internet. So a lot of people see Web3 as Web3 probably, and crypto as just, I can be anonymous here. Yes, you can be anonymous in some ways, but everything in the blockchain, everything is Web3, is recorded, and actually everyone can see. Maybe someone cannot see who you are, maybe someone cannot know exactly who you are, but your wallets, everything that you are interacting with, that stamp, those IDs, everyone can see them on the internet. So that is one of the, I will say, the coolest feature in Web3, is that kind of transparency. Imagine in your bank, maybe you have a bank account, and or a circle, every transaction that that circle is doing, or any transaction that that bank is doing, everyone can be able to see. So that is the blockchain. Even imagine in Pesa, even M-Pesa was like that. So what are the core Web3 design principles? I'm not going to repeat I think we all know the design principles, basically. So do not take anything away from Web 2. Those principles you use in Web 2 are exactly the same. But here I'm just going to add a few things that I will say are maybe add-ons to Web 3 that maybe you might not hear in Web 2. So principle number 1 is custody. So Web 3, as I began saying, Web3 is all about someone owning whatever they are writing on the internet. That is one of the core features of Web3. that if you're writing an article, that article is actually yours, and no one can either use it or in any other way without probably your permission. And you can actually sell that article in multiple ways. And as I said, the money that you have in your account is actually your money. It's not being held by someone else like a bank. So custody is very important in Web3. And there's two kinds of custody. There's self custody. Self custody now means you are the one who is owning everything, but sometimes you can just assign your data or your funds to someone else to manage it for you. There's no problem. Some people do not want to manage their own. Maybe you trust an exchange like Binance, for example. So in Binance, if you have an account in Binance, Binance are the one who are holding your money for you. But if you have an account with MetaMask, that money no one is holding for you. You're the one who's holding it yourself. And so as in the previous slide, I said security was built in mind. So everything you see is an intentional feature to make the web very secure. So when you're building and you're designing and building Web3 applications, you have to know you have to know the security principles that people use here in Web3. And number one is a seed phrase. So as I said, a seed phrase is a 24 word. It's a sequence of 24 words, and those 24 words are the ones which are securing your account. Transparency, I mentioned about transparency, which is a very core feature in Web3, that everything can be seen. Every transaction, any activity that is done on Web3 can be seen. So, unless you are building something centralized and maybe you want to keep your product very Web2-ish, if you want to put your product very Web3, you have to understand that there are some details you have to show that you normally wouldn't show in a Web2 product. If M-Pesa was a Web3 product, all the transactions that would be happening on M-Pesa, all of them, everyone could be able to actually see them. Maybe not attach each transaction to an individual, but everyone will be able to see that so and so sent this money. Even the government, everyone that is on M-Pesa will be able to see any transaction that is happening on M-Pesa, if M-Pesa was a Web3 product. So decentralization, um, this is the same as custody, but there's something called domains or ENS domains. ENS stands for Ethereum Name Service. So your wallet or your whatever you're building on, sometimes the identity in Web3 is very large. So equivalent of a phone number, that's like 36 letters, I think, if I'm not wrong, 36. And that was built to make everything secure because it's using advanced cryptography, so someone cannot be able to hack. I don't think any wallet has been hacked yet in Web3. It's very difficult to do that. So you have to know that you're building for that as well. You're building so that people can actually own what they can actually own. So the six is familiarity. This is the same. This is the same principle as in Web2, but these are, as I said, these are one of the principles that are very hard to replicate in Web3. Because now, for example, if you want to use like a Google account to log in, the one that you use, for example, here to log in into Zoom, there's something maybe you are trading it for. You're trading it for maybe a security feature, or you're maybe trading it for a decentralization. So you have to know between the two. Okay, so let me not demo this first. Let me go to Web3 design patterns, and then I'll demo later. So what are the Web3 design patterns that are very common in this industry? Now, The first thing you do when you're going into an app, the first thing you see when you're interacting in an app is the onboarding. So as designers, we all know the most popular onboarding forms, uh, flows in Web 2. You know, it's the email or phone, email, password, and the rest. Those are very, very simple to do in Web 2. Now, the difference, that's one of the first differences in Web 3 between these two iterations of the internet, is that Web 3 is kind of like creating a situation whereby everything is a wallet. So instead of using the normal create account and email or phone number and password and something like that, at the end of the day, what you're creating, that account you're creating, probably has to become a wallet. It has to become like some sort of like a wallet. Everything, literally, even if you are, let's say you are logging into a newspaper, like the Standard, you use like Google or something like that, but that's not a wallet. In Web3 terms, that would basically be a wallet, because Web3 is all about custody, and that is one of the features of the same. So you have to know that at the end of the day, when you're onboarding a user in Web3, they're probably creating a wallet, or they are connecting to another wallet. Now, let's look at, I'm going to use M-Pesa as an example a lot, because it's the most popular, everyone knows about it. So M-Pesa ideally is a wallet, right? So yeah, it's a digital wallet. Now, M-Pesa is a Web2 wallet. Now, if the thing with M-Pesa as a wallet, because it's a Web2 wallet, the thing with it is that M-Pesa is not really used to log in into other sites, ideally. If M-Pesa was a Web3 wallet, if you open any amount of website or platform, the same way you see signing with Google is the same way you'll see signing with M-Pesa. And once you log in with M-Pesa, it will be like a wallet, and you could make transactions from the go. So every wallet in Web3 is like that, and every login experience, almost every, not even almost, every login experience you will see in Web3, it always ends up creating a wallet. Whether you are logging in with a Google or a MetaMask or something else, it will create a wallet. Another thing you can use in a onboarding, apart from like connecting a wallet, you can use something called account abstraction. I hope that's not a little bit technical, but I started by saying that language is a key issue, but it's good to learn these things. So before 2 years, or probably over maybe 2 or more years ago, no one could be able to create a wallet using Google or the normal sign up options that we know of. The normal sign up options that we know of, those are email, Google, social logins like Twitter, Facebook, and the rest. Before that, no one could be able to do so. But an iteration was made on Web3 called account abstraction. This meant that you can now onboard using this normal Google and Facebook and the rest. So you see now the UX is starting to become a little bit better. Because if I went to someone and told them, you know what, before you logging into my app, and you probably see, is that you have to create a wallet. So you have to have two applications for you to use one application. And I'll show you how that plays out. But right now, someone can just log in into a Google, and that wallet would be created easily. So that is an onboarding flow. These are two onboarding flows that you will see in Web3. And yeah, so another flow you'll see is called the transaction flow. Now, if you remember, I said everything in the blockchain is transparent and everything can be verified. How? Any activity you do in Web3, and on the blockchain is actually a transaction. Even if, for example, there are social apps like Twitter, so there's even email products like Gmail, for example. So you see, in blockchain, if I'm sending a message to you, that is a transaction. So literally any activity in blockchain is a transaction, and that transaction will cost money. It will cost money. So this is not a bug, this is a feature, because everything in the internet right now is meant to be like that. Everything has to be verified. So that's why the blockchain has built activities and these actions to be transactions, so that someone can actually go somewhere and verify that you actually did a certain activity. Now, these transactions are probably the same. You know, if you are transacting on M-Pesa, you know, you just put your number, put your PIN, and then it tells you successful or not. Um, a lot of the times in blockchain, you have to use progress indicators. It's probably the same as somewhere else, but in Web 2, some Web 2 projects and some Web 2 designs, you probably might look that away. But on the UX, you probably know that there's something there. So yeah, a transaction can be pending, a transaction can be confirmed, a transaction can fail, and all this you have to factor in when you are like creating the UX flows, so that you do not, so that your developers knows exactly the status of those transactions, and they can see how to best manage those statuses. Okay, the transaction flows are a little bit different from design to design, project to project, and you'll see the progress indicators. You'll see a lot in something we call a bridge, a cross-chain bridge. So you remember when I said you want to send money from M-Pesa to Airtel, before you had to withdraw, you had to go to a M-Pesa cash agent, withdraw that money, then go to an Airtel agent, deposit to your Airtel number, and then send it to. So imagine all that is done digitally, but it's usually actually the same process. It's just that it's on the ground, but even digitally, it's the same process that's done, but it's because it's happening faster. Because what a bridge does is you actually withdraw money from your wallet, give it to someone, and then that someone makes that transaction for you. Now, because everything's supposed to be transparent, you have to know all that process flow, how it works, so your developers can be able to create a clear UI for making those transactions. Another thing you probably should know about Web3 design patterns is the tokens. These are the money you hear. For example, you hear USDT, you hear Ethereum, um, you hear USDC. So tokens are the assets. These are the digital assets. So the thing is, this the thing is why you should know about these flows and about these tokens is different tokens behave differently. Like, it's crazy. So there's a token called ERC20, and these are fungible tokens, but there are some called non-fungible tokens. There are tokens that you can transfer between individuals. There are also tokens that you cannot transfer between individuals. So when you're designing your project, you have to know your project, which token is that project going to use, because you don't want to design something and you're showing someone they can send it to another person, but they actually cannot. Maybe you're building just an NFT or something else. So uh, the product designers and the product designers have to really know which kind of tokens they are using for their project. Otherwise, you might be a little bit ahead in your project, and then realize, this token cannot do this, or this token can do that. Personally experienced that a lot. um, when we began, we used a certain token, this same ERC20 token. but there are some capabilities it doesn't have, and then you have to do something extra. So the developers have to do something extra, something that they did not know about. Another pattern you'll see is a domain. So a domain is just the same as the ones you're using, for example, zoom.com or whatever. Now, imagine, because a wallet in Web2 is just a phone number or an email, a wallet in Web3 is just letters and numbers, and that can be like 36 of them. They don't even form a word, you know. So these domains, they are meant to improve the user experience and the user friendliness, such that instead of using that wallet, you use the a name or a domain. You assign a domain to that. It's actually amazing, because it means, let's say you say UIUX Nairobi have a website. It's called UIUX.com. That UIUX.com could be a website, but it's also a wallet. That means it can receive money and make transactions. So that's how the internet of Web3 is supposed to work. That's how it works. You also should, another Web3 design pattern, is that um, these networks or these chains, you might be designing a project that needs to interact with many chains. You know, let's say if it was possible for us to create a fintech, which it is, to create a fintech, the same way you create a fintech that interacts with Safaricom and Pesa and Tcash and banks and the rest. So this is the same. It's just that there's a little bit of complexity there. So you need to know how to do that. You need to know how to manage the different networks in your project. And you can do that by doing chain selection, whereby someone selects, let's say you are on this network or on this network, and then you can now make transactions on this network. Or as the UX, you can tell your developers there are certain tools that they can use to enable someone to do that, so that a user doesn't have to do that. Now, speaking of the tools, now these are some of the tools that you can use to to simplify the UX of majority of Web3 products that we have. So number one is called Reon. This one creates a wallet using an email address. So this one is very, very easy even to integrate. Very, very popular as well. And then Ethers.js. This is just a library, but it's a tool that has a lot of UX capability. When the product team is choosing which tools to use, you probably should recommend this. This is a Lisk SDK tool number 3. This is a chain. It's also it's a layer 2 chain that is very, very simple to use. So it's one of those networks that are very, very, that make your application very, very simple, because transactions here are very, very cheap. A transaction here is like cents to the Kenyan shilling. It's the transaction here are probably like costless. They cost like almost zero. If they cost something, it cannot go above 1 bob. Imagine you are sending money, you are sending a billion, and it just costs you 1 shilling to send that billion. So that's one of the tools you can use. Swiped, this is the one of the Kenyan dApps I will showcase to you. Um, Alchemy, this one, these are APIs that give you real data. So if you want your applications to have real-time data in the blockchain very, very quickly, so that your users do not have to wait a lot, you probably should recommend these tools. These EAPs, these are mainly for developers. But if you're probably going to use Google to log into someone, you probably should know which tools your developers are using. Uh, as a UX designer or a product designer, you might be dealing with developers who do not know some of these tools. So when you are doing UX recommendations and a UX strategy, you probably should recommend some of these tools to them. So as I take just a second. let me showcase one of the projects, and you can try to see the flow in that. I hope you can see my screen in that. So this one is a product called Swiped. So look, it's telling me to connect to your wallet. You remember now this is an onboarding flow. I hope you guys can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Should I share? Which window should I share? All right. So you can see it's telling us to connect your wallet. So this is one of the most popular onboarding flows I told you about. So this is a wallet. This is an application. But for you to use the application, you have to log in. How do you log in? By connecting your wallet, because everything is a wallet here. And it tells us to connect using either of these wallets. Yeah. See, it tells me to connect, and it's connected, right? So that is how the onboarding flows are done here in Web3. When I said about chains and networks, so you can see there are three chains here. There's Lisk, there's yeah, and you can see it changes to another chain. You can see even the amount changes. So let's say these were Airtel or M-Pesa and the rest. You can just click a drop down. You can probably see this flow a lot in Web 2 as well. These are just things that are borrowed from Web 2. Let's say there's no big difference. And then you can see your transactions. Now let me take you through a transaction flow. An example tells us to input a phone number and you confirm. So you can see here this is called a transaction fee. We probably did this because of the language. If we said gas, no one could understand what gas is, but we use that to make the language easier. You can see it's checking the status of that transaction. That is one of the things I said about transactions, that there are statuses to these transactions. And once that status is confirmed, you can proceed to complete the transaction. You can see that the transaction is complete. So yeah, I'll be taking questions right now.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for walking us through that. So I welcome you to ask questions. If you have questions that you'd like to ask from Michael about what he's talked about, please post them in the chat as we go. But we already have one question from Nelly. And the question, Nelly, maybe you can unmute yourself and ask the question directly.
Oh, okay. Nowadays, that's a nice presentation, Michael. Question is, I know in Web3 there's something called trilemma. So with trilemma, it means that you can either build for security and scalability, or you can build. So my question is, how does the thinking around designing for Web3 differ, or how does it differ? How do you approach design the two with the trilemma in mind? Like what will you do, or what are some of the practices you do if you're just looking for scalability and security? what are some of the practices that are there if you're looking maybe for the other two?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Nelly. Yeah. Thank you for your question. So, as I said, this is very, very, as what Nelly is saying, this is very, very real in Web3. Like, it's a really, really big issue when you are designing for Web3. Because everything that was built on the blockchain is a feature that is meant to make everything very, very secure. Whatever, anything that you're going to add, any layer that you're going to probably add on top of it, you're going to trade two major things. Number one, you're probably going to trade decentralization aspect of it. The people who are going to use the DApp, are they going to have complete ownership of everything, their data, their funds, everything? So number two, what you're going to trade with is security, because everything was built to be secure. So if you're adding another layer to it, another layer to it, you're probably going to make something, you're going to make your product a little bit insecure, something like that. So this is what she's saying about the trilemma effect, which is very, very real. Before you actually build, you are thinking, uh, which tools are we going to go for, which strategy are we going to go for, so that we either balance this out or we don't trade in as much. So one of the first things you can do is to know who you are building it for. If you're building for, I say that if you're building for institutions that are holding because everyone needs their grades to security, right? No one needs a house that has fences and then it has like a wall fence and then there's barbed wire on top and then there are dogs inside as well. No one wants a house like that. And I mean, not everyone wants a house like that. Someone just wants a barbed wire fence. Some want with dogs. Someone do not want with dogs. So users are different. So you have to know the person you are building it for. What kind of grade security do they want on the applications? You answer these questions when you do user interviews and you're trying to empathize with your users and you're building user personas. Once you know that, you know the grade of security that they have, the grade of security that they want, and the form of and the grade of decentralization that you want, you can be able to make the decisions. So that is, I would say, the main thing that you use to determine what you're going to use. So question number two, how does the UI and aesthetics change for the typical Web3 user? Oh, I would say Web3 products have one of the most beautiful UIs you can see. I think um, someone can tell you, if someone can tell you, how can you define the UI of a Web3 product? Number one, they're going to tell you is colorful designs, gradients, and 3D, 3D, 3D designs. So yeah, Web3 projects are very, very aesthetic. Like their UI, it's probably one of the things that distinguishes them from Web2. Every Web3 design is a little bit extra. They call it like a modern design where you have gradients, where you have Web3 interactivity into it. You have things jumping around. So if I would grade a simple Web2 design, um, even like a website, and its counterpart in Web3, you will see the difference. How these Web3 websites are. They are very, very aesthetic. So yeah, thank you, Kate, for your question. And I can even send you some examples that you see in some of these designs in Web3.
Cool. I have a question. What patterns have you found in Web3 that people who are designing for the rest of the internet, basically Web2 or other applications, would benefit from adopting, that are only in Web3, but they would benefit the rest of the the rest of the designers who don't necessarily work in Web3?
Okay, yes. If we are thinking of, let's say, I'm trying to find a pattern that is not very common. Now, as I said, one thing you have to understand is that everything in Web3 is a transaction. So these onboarding tools, I would say, they're actually tied to the technology. So if someone wants to use a pattern in Web3, a specific flow in Web3, like kind of like the transactions and data, things like that, you have to tie it to the technology itself. It's very, very intertwined. So it's difficult for someone to recommend a specific pattern that someone can use in Web2 because all these flows, you might see that they are that you can just use them easily, but in Web3, every flow is intertwined with the core technology. You can't just use something the way you want, I would say. So in terms of like, I don't see a lot of transaction statuses if we look at fintechs, because that's what I've built a lot. Most fintechs, because they just want someone to have less screens and less buttons to press. So it's usually here, done. But in Web3, that kind of transparency is needed. It's like a must. So to bring that transparency into play, you have to really show the user the core things that they're interacting with. If there is something that maybe our two companies should use, is probably the transparency aspect to it.
Cool. Thank you. Is there anyone who has another question they'd like to ask before we end? Okay. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you for presenting today. That was a great presentation. I believe all of us have learned something new that we probably need to know. So thank you for taking the time to prepare the presentation and give it to us today. Now, if you'd like to reach out to Michael and learn more, he's posted his handles in the previous slides. If you can go back to them, Michael, it may be useful if anyone wants to reach out to you. And for anyone who is new to the meetup and has not come before, we hold these meetups on every month. And so I would encourage you to follow us on social media. LinkedIn is a great place. And if you've just joined and maybe missed the meetup, you can find the recording of it on YouTube. And so look for us at UX Nairobi on YouTube. And I would like to appreciate everyone for coming, and I appreciate everyone who's provided all of the engagement in the chat, and I appreciate all of you for that. And thank you once again, Michael, for presenting today. I wish all of you a lovely evening, and until next time, bye.